Yeah, democracy, it's an ancient method that started in ancient Athens. In Greek, it means demos, people, cardus, government, the government of the people. This is what democracy means. And when we look at democracy, it's a very enlightened method as something that developed after many years of different other kinds of government. And lately we feel that there is a kind of an earthquake around the concept of democracy. We're no longer sure that democracy is the best thing that we have, but along with it, we're not sure that we have something that can replace it. We still see it as the most enlightened method that we had to this day compared with other methods. So on this show, we'd like to go value by value and examine what does each value mean, what is its meaning, why is it so important for us as human beings. The feeling is that the values are good. It's simply that either because of the form of government or because we're not realizing them correctly, or as human beings, we're not perceiving them correctly in a way that really allows us to really express them in life. The values are good, but the way they're realized in life, it's not exactly what we expected. So we'd like to start with the first value. And this is, I think, the value that we're most afraid of losing. It's individual freedom and human dignity. And what does it say? It says that a person has the right to behave according to his own will, and we have different other kinds of freedom that apply to each and every person: the freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, the freedom of assembling. We actually feel that the freedom of expression and our personal freedom allows us to do what we want, express our opinion the way we think is right, to believe in what we want, to behave as we will. We have a feeling that this is what gives us the ability to be who we are, the ability to realize ourselves and who we are. And human dignity and liberty says that we respect everyone. And also this has to do with self-realization and so on and so forth. And I'd like to start with a question. Why are personal freedoms so important for us as modern people? I think it was always important to a person. The freedom to move from place to place, to decide where I want to live, how do I want to live, how to relate to life, how to raise my children, how to live my family life, and what kind of culture, what language, maybe even what nation to belong to, what religion and tradition and culture. Man has many forms and shapes of existence, in part of which, at least, he would like to be free to determine his form. When I raise my children, I don't want for anyone to dictate anything. Maybe I want to choose myself what's good for my children. Where do I have my vacation? How do I work? According to which laws? In what country? Meaning in which environment? And so on and so forth. These are many, many things that I would actually like to determine. Now, the question is also, when I want to determine this, do I want to determine it according to my level of development? That's the first thing. The second thing is according to my ego, meaning ego, my will to receive and enjoy each and everything. That's the second thing. Now, my desire is for everyone to serve me. What does democracy say about that? It resists. If everyone will serve me, then who'll serve them? Then here immediately we have a kind of collision between the two, between me and others. Meaning democracy can exist only on condition that a person is very developed, very educated, that he can understand himself and others, that he can relate to others as to himself, that he can rise above his own ego and to really be free of his urges and habits, and to make the right kinds of calculations for himself, both in a concealed and in a revealed way. And then society, which consists of these kinds of corrected people, then it can determine that they will behave in a democratic way. Otherwise, what is democracy? If I say something, undoubtedly that it will be opposed to someone else. So where's the democracy? So you can't determine anything. So there's a constant hidden struggle between my desire to work for my own benefit, or every person for their own benefit, and the benefit of society. Of course. And this is the conflict. Of course. So what do? Meaning, democracy, it's a kind of a philosophical, spiritual, unrealistic imagination that what we yearn for, maybe even by coming close to it, I'm destroying society. Let's take a family, for example. How could it be that there will be democracy in a family? I'm asking you, as a mother, as a wife. Can you imagine a democratic family? Today there's a big conflict. I'm not talking about conflicts. I'm asking, can you envision a democratic family? It's really very hard. No, not that it's hard, it's impossible. So why are we saying that society can be that way? Is it possible to find some balancing line between the well-being of society and the well-being of the individual? Only if we educate the individual. If we'll educate the individual to act for the benefit of society. Otherwise, we can't. I see that you wrote a lot of things. You really wrote a doctorate. We'll go over it. But eventually, we'll go over it in order to see that without changing man, you can't change society. There can be no change in society. We build society out of people that aren't ready for it at all. They're not united or organized for it. It's like I want to build a computer, and I take a few pieces of wood and a hammer and some nails. Can I build a computer out of it? With electronics and everything? Screen, this, that? No. Meaning, the society has to correspond man, the substance out of which you build society. So instead of preparing wood and nails and a hammer, you have to prepare such materials, suppose electronic components, out of which I can build a computer. Same thing here. We have to have people that are educated, that understand how to function, how to connect with each other, for us to have such a system of connections that is called democracy. So the point of balance is that both I, as a human being, will feel both my own well-being and the well-being of society as one and the same, and anything that I choose to do will take both of these things into consideration. Of course. Otherwise, society can't be in peace. Because if a person isn't balanced with society, if a person doesn't see that the well-being of society and his own well-being for the benefit of society or for my own benefit are one and the same, then such a society has zero chances of existing. Very quickly, it'll reach a revolution, civil war, and so on, because everyone's fighting for their own interests. Of course, it's like in a family. If we agree on something, but actually on the inside, everyone's left with their own grudge, then 2 days later, it explodes. Our feeling is that if we concede ourselves or we give up our individual freedom. For many years, man was not the center of things, but the government was such that it toyed with a person however it felt like. And today we've reached a state that we see as a development that man is in the center, and what we have left is to also put society in that position. No, you build a society where man is in the center. Great, I want to be that man. I want to be that man. Put me in the center. And where am I then? Exactly. So how could it be? What does it mean that man is in the center? It's impossible. It's just pretty words that we say as a lie, and therefore it doesn't work. Can I feel good when I'm not in the center? The big fear, I think, is the big fear of the modern person is to lose their freedom. There's this fear that if you're subject to different dictations, then you lose your personal freedom. Could it be that I live my life and feel good with myself without feeling limited in the situation that you've just described? First of all, it depends on a person's particular feeling. There are people that are in prison and they feel as if they're free. Really. I know such a person. He sat in prison in Africa. He was locked up and he didn't want to leave. He was given food, a bed. Everything was fine. You have a roof. He didn't have to be afraid of someone jumping him or animals or people. He was allowed to walk in the yard. He felt that he's living a good life. He wasn't lacking anything. He didn't want to leave. What is freedom? What is freedom really? So any definition that you give, we have to thoroughly examine. Who are we talking about? How could there be freedom? Freedom is, I feel like doing something that my neighbor doesn't want me to do, so it's freedom or not? I'm free, I'll do it. What do? Now, on my piece of land, up to his fence, I plant a tree. He's saying, how can you plant a tree? I'll have no sunlight in my window. You're really gonna hide the sunlight from me. This is my place. This is what I feel like doing. This is democracy. This is really what's happening today. Someone has a tree and the other doesn't have sun. So that's democracy. So what are we supposed to do? So we see that if someone does something and we're interconnected, he'll always do it at the expense of others. And sooner or later, it'll explode.